Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was clearly inspired by some of the genre's best. And if you're thinking this game is overhyped, you're wrong. That's right, folks. Today you can call me Modern Brandon.
My take on modern.
Because I beat Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and this is what we've been waiting for. Before we get into it, if you're a fan of retro games with a major dose of RPGs and nostalgia, then go buy this game. I don't even care if you subscribe, just you have to play this game. But if you need more convincing, let's get into it.
Are you taking this art class too?
After you hit that like button and that notification bell. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was developed by a studio called Sandfall Interactive. Never heard of them? Well, I don't think any of us had until that first trailer dropped. And that's because this is their debut game, and that makes me very excited about the future. Sandfall was founded in 2020 in Montpellier, France by Guillaume Brochet, however you say that last name, with a small team made up of former Ubisoft devs. Apparently, Guillaume got bored at Ubisoft and wanted to try something new. So off he went to the streets of Reddit with a pitch to get the team together before they secured any funding for this project. People on the team like Jennifer Svedberg Yen, the incredible writer for this game, initially thought, why not try out voice acting? Sent an audition and ended up being brought on as the lead writer for this game. Honestly, spoilers I guess, but this is some of the best writing I've seen in any game like ever. Not to mention bringing on Laurent Testard, the composer for this game, because of some interactions on SoundCloud, which, you know, led to one of the best soundtracks of our generation, Fight Me. This was a scrappy group of 33 creatives. Wait, 33? Did I count that right? Including the happiness manager? This team of creatives all had a love for JRPGs like Final Fantasy, the Tales series, Lost Odyssey, and Persona. According to Guillaume, the team all had a lot of nostalgia and love for these kinds of games, but also wanted to see something new and fresh done with the genre. They were also inspired by some modern games like the Soul series, Devil May Cry, and Nier, where you have a very rewarding gameplay loop, but need to learn the attack timings, weaknesses, etc. Many of these fine folks either had very little or no experience working on some of these games, but everyone was very invested and passionate about the RPG genre. And their passion and talent is very clear in this game. Together, they set the vision for the studio. Sandfall is about creating games that combine AAA production quality with the indie soul, on a less than AAA budget, and a focus on single-player experiences. Let's go! In their words, they want to deliver incredible stories with intriguing characters in gorgeous fantasy worlds. And with Clair Obscur Expedition 33, this vision is on full display. This game is generally inspired by French art, literature, and the Belle Epoque, a time in French history after the end of the Franco-Prussian War and before World War I, where the arts were in full swing and there was an abundance of music and theater and art and literature. More specifically, the story was inspired by La Horde du Contrevent. I don't know how to say that in French, forgive me, but it's a French science fiction novel set in a devastated world ruled by this omnipresent wind, where an organization trains up children to become a horde searching for the origin of the wind. And apparently this book is extremely hard to translate and came with the soundtrack, so that's pretty sweet. Anyway, all of this is the foundation of this game. A JRPG, if you will. Bonjour! It was 5 years in development, and they dropped a game that's genre-defining. So let's get to the setup here. Once a year, the paintress wakes to paint a cursed number on this giant monolith, and everybody of that age instantly turns to smoke and rose petals and fades away.
Art is not all fun and games.
She first appeared 67 years prior, and year by year that number ticks down. And to kick off this tragic adventure, at the start of the game, we see her wake up to paint the number 33. I started this game with my buddy Peter, and within 5 minutes, I was already sitting there like, what is this game? The prologue by itself set the tone for this game brilliantly. This world was so strange and yet mesmerizing. It was visually stunning to look at. It looked like a painting come to life. every frame felt handcrafted and had this haunting beauty to it. Weird in the best way. I remember the very beginning of Act 1, walking down this area with Gustav. I was looking around, not sure what to expect, mesmerized by the surroundings. Like Gustav, I felt the uncertainty. It was some of the best immersions I felt in a video game ever. The beauty of the scene, the horror, all coming together for both the player and the character. And this was just the beginning. You feel the weight in this game. There's something deep here. How would you spend your days if you knew their end? How do you process grief? How do you press forward when tragedy and trauma come? These are some of the questions you're immediately faced with. The opening hours set the tone that's poetic without being pretentious. And I was totally hooked. I couldn't put this one down. Frankly, I'm still struggling to put this one down. And once you're in, you're in. But it wasn't just the aesthetic and narrative drive that keeps you in. These characters, man. I'm gonna do my best to do right by some of these characters, but nothing I can say can do this game justice. They nailed it. I mean, nailed it. Every single character feels real. They're flawed, complex, funny, tragic, brave. The dark tone was clearly inspired by games like Lost Odyssey and others I won't name for risking spoiling things, but they took it up a notch with these characters. I remember playing Lost Odyssey and thinking there can't be that many other RPGs that can make me feel as deeply for these characters as I do. And that's one of the reasons I loved that game. And yet, here we are. This game makes Lost Odyssey look simple in comparison. And that's not to say anything bad about Lost Odyssey. Gone are the days of RPG cheese with this one. I can't think of a single moment that didn't land in this game. No cheesy dialogue, no over-top melodramatic reactions, just pure excellence. What these characters say, what they don't say, it all matters and it makes a major impact. And the motion capture showing their body language and facial expressions is downright perfect. Each character brought so much depth to the overall cast, and each in their own unique ways. They're each so complex, layered with so many emotions that you see unravel as they go through the twists and the turns of the story. Maëlle, voiced by Jennifer English, is an orphan who bounces around from family to family as her parents gommaged, the term for disappearing to the paintress's number each year, when she was very young. She's taken in by Gustav, voiced by Daredevil, Charlie Cox, and his sister Emma. The relationship between her and Gustav really come out in the prologue and continue throughout the game. She decides to join this expedition, the equivalent of essentially a suicide mission, not because it's her last year, but because she longs for adventure. She's so full of life, she's crafty and sassy and resourceful, and the way her complexity reveals itself throughout the story is masterful. And Gustav, of course, is well beloved by the cast, and for good reason. It becomes very apparent early on that he loves and feels very deeply. But he's incredibly smart, brave, and intuitive. He's like the sword-fighting scientist who created this luminous converter, allowing the characters to interact with the world outside of Lumiere differently. And in many ways, he's the foundation of this entire expedition. The way he interacts with Maëlle, Lune, Ciel, and others make it very clear that he's very well loved and the sort of glue that keeps the party together. Lune has this strength and determination and drive, and I just loved her, especially in the early stages in the game. But the complexity with her comes later, as sometimes she needs to pause and reflect. Or there are some situations where maybe there's some more empathy that's needed. She carries this great weight of expectation from her parents, and this both emboldens and hinders her, which makes her a wonderfully real and complex character as well. Ciel, voiced by Shala Nix, is Slam Zany's favorite character of all time.
And you know what, Brandon? That's because Ciel is the best character. She is the best character in Expedition 33, and no one can convince me otherwise.
She is absolutely incredible. She's gone through so much, as you'll learn throughout the story, but she's so compassionate and empathetic. She has this maternal nature to her and cares for the cast so well. And her ability to balance both tragedy and hope is also reflected in her playstyle, which is amazing. And this stands in contrast to Lune and complements her drive to stay on track and finish the mission. Her personality just grows on you over time and is definitely one of the best of the best. You can have this one slam. Minoko, voiced by Rich Keeble, comes in later and is hilarious. He's this show-off gestural that learned to speak English and joins the team. He's proud, competitive, and likes to make his epicness known, which gets him into trouble at times.
Ladies, could I?
I absolutely loved Rich Keeble's delivery of Minoko, though. He's got this low, strong voice, but occasionally has these hilarious interjections that totally break the facade. And Verso? Well, I don't think I could say it any better than Ben Starr himself.
Verso is no one. Next question.
Oh my gosh, and then you have Esquier. Oh, I love Esquier so much. Someone give me a plush of this guy. This legendary, all-powerful, hilarious, and sweet boy that just loves his rocks and his friends. It may be too much work to go find a rock, but ramming into a giant Nevron to destroy it? No problem. He gave me some serious Baymax vibes, and I love him. I won't get into Renoir, the Paintress, or even some of the other characters here to avoid major spoilers, but my goodness, this entire cast is absolutely incredible, and the performances, 10 out of 10. Also, you just can't forget about those gesturals in general, because they're all hilarious. The writing in this game avoids some of the JRPG pitfalls of tropey, cliche characters that we've seen even in our favorite old games. Like, I love Lost Odyssey, but Jansen can be a bit much, you know? And instead it delivers a sharp, thoughtful, emotional set of characters and story. It strikes this perfect balance between dark and deep and funny with these general moments of levity. And that's rare, especially in a genre where melodrama can often drown out subtlety. But the characters don't stop there. Sure, they each have an impact on the story, but they also have unique playstyles and combat systems that come with a level of depth that is absolutely addicting. This is hands down the best turn-based battle system I've ever played. Yeah, I said it. And this, I think, is probably most obviously influenced by some of those classics. First, you've got timed attacks a la Legend of Dragoon, Super Mario RPG, and Paper Mario, and of course, Lost Odyssey. But even better tuned. And they also added this free aim mechanic that allows you to use AP to get some extra shots in. If you aim well for some enemies, you can actually do extra damage, or you could do things like break off armor or weapons. Unlike Legend of Dragoon, even if you miss the time button presses, you'll still get a hit in. It just won't do as much damage. Though like Legend of Dragoon, some of your attacks will succeed or fail based on your timing. And like the Mario RPG and Paper Mario games, when defending, you have these time button presses to dodge, which is easier to do, or you can perfectly time a parry for a counter attack. But that counter system is where you see the influence of games like Dark Souls. The parry window is tight, demanding, and may make you a little crazy for some bosses. Like, how in the world am I supposed to counter this? But when you dig in, practice, and you nail it, oh, it feels so good. And if you're like me, you'll probably end up dying over and over and over again until you get it instead of dodging first to get a feel for the timing. Pro tip for this one is to listen as much as you look. Most of the enemies have audio cues for when they're about to swing, and that can help you a ton when you're trying to get a parry in. Every fight feels like a duel of skill. Some of these boss fights can be crazy, but in a good way. As you progress, you feel that sense of accomplishment, especially when you get to some of those endgame super bosses.
Yes! Yes! Oh, Simon, I got you, you suck.
You can, and maybe will, get to a point where your level and your character setup give you every advantage of battle. But frankly, until I got to the hardest optional boss in the game, I was constantly surprised by these battles. You only need to be around level 45 to beat this game, and, well, I was level 87. What? And I still had bosses that would wipe the floor with me. I'm not sure if there is any level scaling or something going on in this game. I did hear that there was some influence from Final Fantasy VIII as well. But no matter how much I leveled up, I never felt overpowered. And that made it way more interesting. There was always a real sense of danger, and overcoming it felt incredible. Okay, I mean, I did beat the last boss in one hit. But then, afterwards, I found some of those super bosses, and they immediately humbled me, destroyed me, and made me rethink my entire life.
Art is not all fun and games.
And it's that having to rethink your strategy where you start to plumb the depths of this combat system, specifically in the character builds. There are two main components of this. One, the weapon/accessory build, and two, each character's specific class and skills. The weapons level up and include skills tied to them that unlock as they level. And there are these accessories called pictos that grant passive abilities that you can learn permanently, just like Final Fantasy IX's ability system. And then you get Lumina points that let you equip the learned abilities from the pictos. You won't get the stats from the pictos anymore, something I figured out way too late in the game, but you can come up with some crazy builds. You'll get some classic abilities like 50% more damage on base attack or 20% burn on free aim. But then you have some later game pictos that give you insane damage boosts when in certain circumstances, like being under 50% health, or a roulette that can proc a 200% damage boost or drop it to 50%. Mix that with characters like Mael getting skills that drop her HP to 1 and puts her in a stance that gives her a 200% damage boost, and speaking of Mael having stances, each of these characters have some amazing classes you can build out, and it was so addicting. Every single character can become an absolute unit. For example, you have Gustav running the more agile thief-like class, Lune acting as a mage that can do crazy damage depending on how you use your elements. Ciel has this super interesting balance build where she can go between sun and moon cards and eventually hit Twilight State for better damage output. She's not inspired by Gambit at all.
Woo, I'm about to make a name for myself here.
And Minoko is a straight-up blue mage and can be just about anything. Damage, support, tank, whatever you want. You get all this depth and the party dynamic of 3 members at a time, and it all comes together to bring this very familiar feeling system, but so much more refined than any JRPG I've ever played. Doesn't take away from its amazing predecessors, don't get me wrong, but it did show very clearly that turn-based combat is not dead, and it doesn't have to be boring or stagnant. And when you tune things up just right and take down a massively hard boss, you'll be dancing too. And I'm sorry, I have to call out Square Enix and the Final Fantasy team here. I loved 16. Go watch either my 2023 games or Final Fantasy ranking video, and I'll tell you as much. However, the strong indication from that release cycle was that they believed Western audiences didn't want turn-based combat anymore. I can't speak for all of the West, but I can say this game definitely proves that action doesn't have to be the answer to that problem. This game too was influenced by Devil May Cry, but the system was influenced by, not replaced. So as much as I loved 16 for a variety of reasons, I'd love to see Square take a good, hard look at this game and learn from it for 17. The potential for something truly incredible is there, and this team has paved the way. But I do have one critique. What they needed is a flippin' retry boss button. I did discover that you can reload the last autosave to start things over, but it's not quite the same. Some of these bosses were hard enough that if I didn't nail the first parry, it was gonna be a massive uphill battle, if not impossible to beat. So if you die a lot trying to figure out parry like I did, this was a pain. Now, if there's one thing my buddy Chicken Fillets loves about old JRPGs, hello! Oh my gosh, he's gonna get so mad. It's world maps, and this game did the world map right. And much like many of its predecessors like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Xenogears, etc., this world map is well-paced but also layered as you unlock new SKA abilities, which almost felt Pokemon-like. Gotta catch 'em all, SKA rocks! Add some music behind that so it's a little bit less cringe. I never felt like there was too much to do in the world map by finding side dungeons. There was always something to find, but you usually have a limited amount that kind of expands as you progress the story. And don't miss those Gestro beaches. For real. Those were absolutely hilarious, and I never knew how much I needed Minoko in a bathing suit.
Oh, behave.
But man, when you find those dungeons, the designs took this game a step further in its clear inspiration and immersion. I haven't been this immersed in an RPG world since Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Don't ask me which one I like better. I can't handle this. Every single location is mesmerizing, and this is true out the gate. Again, I'm going to go back to that earliest scene with Gustav, walking down the long corridor, something that RPGs have been criticized for. Looking at you, Final Fantasy XIII. But each step brings this wonder, this beauty, horror, questions, realizations, just from looking around. And you might think this is just one or two locations. No, it's every single location. I can't think of a single time I wasn't awed by the environment. They just nailed the aesthetic. It's surreal, dreamlike, sometimes terrifying, and yet always beautiful. As for the dungeon designs, the areas are typically pretty straightforward. Some folks online complained there was no mini-map, but personally, I didn't really find it to be an issue. The level design is so intuitive that you learn to read the environment instead of chasing map markers. There are typically a couple of branches off the main path to find hidden bosses, treasures, pictos, and then paths will loop back around naturally. And these side areas typically feel very rewarding, not frustrating. I didn't once ever find myself confused about direction. I mean, a map wouldn't hurt, I suppose, but it's so well designed that I never really felt like I needed one. The world itself, the environments, all become part of the story. You'll find these expedition journals, new characters, items, etc. These environments make you ask, what happened here? Who are these shrouded, mysterious characters or Nevrons? And how the heck am I supposed to get on top of this tower? How tall is this thing anyway? There's this constant tension between beauty and decay, hope and hopelessness, grief and levity, and walking through some of these landscapes just gave me the chills. All right, now I need to talk about the story. I'll let you know when we're about to enter spoiler territory. But to start, again, nothing I can say can do this game justice. This is probably the best mature RPG story I've ever played. Besides Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Ugh, I just love Xenoblade Chronicles 3, okay? This game tackles grief, mortality, love, sacrifice, but it doesn't spoon feed you, and it's not cheesy at any point. Every act peels back more layers and adds more color to the painting, recontextualizing what you thought you knew. And by the end, I was a total mess. I mean, to be fair, the end of each act will probably make you a total mess.
You see that depression? You can't buy that. You gotta earn it.
But at the end, I just sat there, jaw dropped, with tears in my eyes, staring at the credits in stunned silence. It was so real. Too real. It hit home for me in ways I couldn't possibly have expected. You feel the story as the player. The combination of characters, plot, world, revelations all perfectly provide this incredible experience, and it will stick with you. Now, I do need to get into some spoilers here because this ending, what in the world? So if you're not interested in some spoilers, go to this timestamp. And I'm warning you, do not watch this part if you haven't played it. The surprises in this game are something you have to experience your first time on your own. All right, ready? Okay, let's go.
Let's have some fun. Let's get crazy here.
I did not expect Renoir and the Paintress to be so relatable. At all. In fact, there was this moment at the end where I was questioning everything I thought I knew. Sure, Renoir could have handled things better, but was he right? There are these two ending paths you can choose and you decide. But I personally think he was kinda right in many ways. This game handles grief so brilliantly. I don't want to get overly sappy here, but I've gone through a lot of stuff lately as I played through this game. And I don't want to go into detail, but dealing with grief is not foreign to me by any stretch. And video games can totally be my canvas. When things are hard, it's tempting to ignore the important things and get lost in a new game, story, characters, but that doesn't drive me forward. It doesn't make me better. Avoidance has never been the answer for me. That's not to say there's no place for them, obviously, or I wouldn't be here. I have this channel and I still love playing games. But the choice at the end here, to face grief and to stop avoiding it, or to lean in and really point the player to ask that question. What will you do when tragedy strikes? What's your canvas? Now, ironically, I dove right back into the canvas, so to speak, and kept playing, even getting the alternate ending because I wanted to see it all. But I think the game brilliantly captures the weight of making the right choice. One could argue that the alternative ending is the right one, and the reason I could hear them arguing for it is because the cost of losing everything if you don't make that choice. No matter what you choose, there is a cost. A significant cost, and every single character, even Clair if you dig further into some of the side content, all show that their decisions, or how they choose to handle grief poorly, had a massive impact on every part of this story. And this is why the ending just left me jaw-dropped and speechless, because it felt like it was asking me to recognize the damage and the consequences of my indecisions, as well as how I process grief. I don't think I've ever played a game that so perfectly tells the story and then drives it straight home to the player like this. It didn't feel like a theoretical, it felt like a life lesson. And as much as I love some of the classic stories of gaming, many JRPGs end with the power of friendship or God thing can't tell us what to do trope that don't really teach much outside of maybe stand up for what you believe in. It can be done well, of course, but often doesn't leave you sort of evaluating your life. While this game had the impact that you typically see from literature, and it's because of that I just can't stress enough how much this game just blew my mind. And for those of you in the know who stayed for this part, let's please keep this stuff out of the comment section. We really want to respect the people who have not experienced this yet. I've been playing RPGs my entire life. From Chrono Trigger to Final Fantasy, Tales, Persona, and Clair Obscur Expedition 33, it stands with the greats. It may be the greatest. If I wasn't so indecisive, I'd probably just admit that this is the best game I've ever played. But I can't do that to Xenoblade. Built on the backs of giants, this is an incredible debut game for Sandfall that takes the paved path of its predecessors and builds something new that pushes the genre forward. And I hope it does push it forward. Every RPG developer out there, Japanese, Western, I don't care, should learn from this masterpiece. There was no bloated budget, no $70 price tag, no Solus designed by committee. It was a small, dedicated team that understood the best of this genre deeply. And it's $49.99. Seriously, what in the world? This is how you move the industry forward. I tried my best, but I don't know if I can fully capture how beautiful, deep, and meaningful this game truly is. All I can do is forge the path for those who come after, because tomorrow comes.
He said it! He said it!
And this is a game everyone should experience.